Welcome to BuffaloWriter.com. My father liked to read, and the books he most liked to read were the free books he got. Whenever he signed up for some Book of the Month Club type operation that was very popular in those days, in the 50s. And then the free books would arrive along with his first selection, along with a statement inviting him to cough up for the dues that he had agreed to pay, that he never would pay because he was my father. Okay. But one day I saw this book on the coffee table, a copy of From Here to Eternity, that was a huge bestseller at this time, and I picked it up and went into my room and started to read. And I stayed there for 3 days. And when I emerged, my head was spinning. I was 13 at the time, and the thought of becoming a writer had never occurred to me, and wouldn't occur to me until some years later. But it may have been at this time and by this book that the seed was first planted. The writer of From Here to Eternity was James Jones, that guy. And there's an interesting story behind the book. You can read all about it on the website, on the archives page. The archives page. And I'm going to read an excerpt from that. Jones grew up in a small town in Illinois, Robinson, Illinois. He was a small town boy, wanted to be a big town boy, wanted to be a writer, and a particular kind of writer, wanted to be a Thomas Wolfe kind of writer. Thomas Wolfe was the author of Look Homeward Angel, one of the great American novels of the 30s. And another small town boy who wanted to be a big town boy. Jones was self-taught as a writer. He never attended college. War broke out. He was drafted, and 4 years later returned to Robinson to start working on a book, From Here to Eternity. He banged on the book, and at some point sent a few chapters off to an editor at Scribner's, Maxwell Perkins. Maxwell Perkins was the editor of Thomas Wolfe, also Hemingway, and a legend in the publishing business. Jones had never met Perkins, had never corresponded with Perkins, had never talked to Perkins on the phone. He did not exist for Perkins. But he sent the manuscript to Perkins because, in his enfeebled mind, he, James Jones, was the next Thomas Wolfe. Now, what are the odds of an unsolicited manuscript submitted by some mental case from a town called Robinson, Illinois, working its way out of the slush pile at a major publishing company like Scribner's to wind up on the desk of a man like Maxwell Perkins, who actually starts to read this thing, to like what he is reading, and to like it well enough to write a letter to the mental case, encouraging him to continue to work on the book. The odds are high, astronomical. But there you have it. The book got finished. An amazing book. Flawed in ways, badly overwritten in parts. But it had the one thing that no other thing can substitute for. That irresistible thing that grabs the reader, keeps him glued to the page. It had that power. Started this book, all 300,000 words. And once started, you finished it. And the timing was right. The war was still fresh in everyone's mind. And the publishers were desperate to get their hooks into the writer of the great novel of World War II, the blockbuster they knew was out there being written at that very moment. That book was From Here to Eternity. There's a famous picture of Jones in front of Scribner's bookstore on Fifth Avenue in New York. The mental case from Robinson, Illinois. Self-taught, a loner from out of nowhere, the reader of Thomas Wolfe, and behind him, filling up the display window of Scribner's, stacks upon stacks of copies of From Here to Eternity. He was 31. This is called happiness. That's the excerpt. Please read the rest of the story, and thank you for watching. I'll see you in a couple of weeks.